The sun rose silently as butterfly wings on that morning of early December, but now and for all the fates were to bring a day of infamy to remember. The nation had slumbered in quiet content as the world had slid into war, but bombs the veil of peace had rent and blooded evermore. As oily smoke still rose to dawn Oahu's tropical cloud, a corps of young were called upon for duty ere they'd vowed. They came from mills and schools and coast, from climes both frigid and warm, from plains the Bronx and mountains vast, and a Carolina farm. Untried they were, fresh-faced young bucks, some still within their teens. Through sweat and drill they had become United States Marines. Trained they had been, equipped they would be, and bathed with thrill and fear. They knew untold that they would be the tip of their country's spear. These boys were ushered onto ships, bound for they knew not where. They sailed on south, o'er crests and dips, through squalls and breezes fair. As days were passed and weeks were churned, the seascape grew banal, and lastly they arrived unlearned at an island called Guadalcanal. The foe had made this far-flung isle a dagger poised to pierce. To steal an airfield the Marines were tasked from an enemy so fierce. The empire of the rising sun had swarmed across the sea, relentless, unstopped, with sword and gun, wherever it wished to be. 1,000 years of warriors high had guarded the empire's wall, and now these modern samurai were conquering all and all. How cruel the mythic gods of war! Is this the match they wanted? Mere boys from school and factory floor, against warriors so undaunted? Yet the Marines waded in and stealthily stole their prize. The airfield now belonged to them. No foes from thence could fly. Complete surprise o'er an enemy few was war's deceptive crumb. An eerie ease the Marines well knew belied what was to come. With few supplies to live upon, they were left to hold in form, and wait alone to face the wrath of the empire's certain storm. Places named in ancient refrain, their domicile for now: Ilu, Savo, Lunga Plain, Tenaru, Matanacao. Yet seaward north the aquatic array which lapped their fragile ground took a new and baleful sobriquet, Iron Bottom Sound. No comfort they had, no luxury they found, only jungle and heat and disease. No certain victory would abound, no treasure could fear appease. The empire moved with speed and zest, with planes and guns to pound, but the young Marines fared each test to hold their hallowed ground. With fury the empire's army planned to regain their prestige lost, and show these stubborn young Marines their lives would be their cost. No chance would be taken for loss or delay to employ the most able and brave. The only solution, the men of Sendai, the empire's glory to save. The men of Sendai were known far and wide, their bloodthirst and cruelty replete. In battle they came as a flowing tide, no concept of defeat. With honor they came to Guadalcanal, to the empire's great relief. The men of Sendai would avenge all and all, was the empire's untroubled belief. They silently moved toward their intent. The jungle was their imagined lair, with ample spirit and vim to be spent, with sureness and strength to spare. The Marines, now depleted, were hungry and tired. 2 months had they held so true, but a strength unbeknownst to themselves now girded, and would sway the battle anew. The Marines had grown up in times hard and dire. A harsh master was the Great Depression, and their metal was hardened in the hottest of fires, of hunger and deep deprivation. From the depths of these times the Marines had emerged to battle for freedom from fear. As young men they now stood for their greatest exam, as the men of Sendai drew near. Through ancient jungle the Sendai did hike, along mountainous slopes and ravines. To gain the point was best to strike and kill the young Marines. As dwellings go, the Sendai learned this jungle was a cruel den. Resource it stole and muscle it burned of those who strode within. The massive tools of war they brought, cannon and mortar and shell, were cast aside and left for naught along the hellish trail. And yet these all-determined men achieved their long-sought stage, from whence to swing their collective sword and vent the Empire's rage. At the edge of the jungle they paused unseen, to rest and ready and hone, and true their sights on the young Marines, on the ridges, all alone. As the sun set low on this tropical day, and the Sendai were yet concealed, the stage was set for this epic play, the battle for Henderson Field. The island air, thick and sweet, condensed on metal and flesh, gave no relief from sapping heat, nor body nor mind refreshed. The clouds above, the stars they hid, and didst the land make dark, and poured out rains in failing bid to douse the battle's spark. With all now set, the weapons unstowed, and the hour now come to pass, the Sendai emerged from their sylvan shroud to charge through cane-like grass. The Sendai tradition, Bushido, the way, spanned 1,000 years or more, and now its code would full display in the violence of modern war. As the evening aged on this full battle scene, they coaxed their violent zeal, but no Bushido creed nor bonsai scream is a match for hot lead and cold steel. Unknowing, the Sendai sped toward deadly inculcation. Much would be learned of their foes straight ahead and their supposed decadent nation. The Marines were not peasants with bamboo spears, nor passive tribal swain. They were not boys with soldier toys who warrior crafts would feign. By now they were a corps of men with steady jaw and eye, a corps of men who valued life, yet unafraid to die. A corps of men adroit and deft, and armed with savage steel, whose hands and minds, bearing no cleft, were buoyed by ironclad will. A corps of men led by men with courageous minds most swift, Puller, Geiger, Edson, Cates, Hannikin, Van de Grift. The Marine line swept round the prized airfield like a giant tortoise shell. From every point the Sendai touched, erupted leaded hell. Against the stalwart Sendai the bulwark grew even more, when brave Dakota soldiers brought their guns to aid the corps. The Sendai fought for empire, for honor, with rifles, grenades, and knives. The Marines retort, Brownings, canister, 50s, and 105s. Through blitz and mayhem and carnage of flesh and extant liquidation, the Marines faced waves of human seiche, the Sendai, annihilation. 2 days, 2 nights, the Sendai came on upon the Marine defenses impaled. They drove to breach the Marines' thin line, but in force they never prevailed. And thus across this tropical land lay the empire's perishing rancor, while tall astride the ridges grand stood eagle, globe, and anchor. With their weapons, their mettle, their skill, their resolve, their bravery, their strength replete, when the sun from on high showed the battle all solved, our Marines' victory was sure and complete. My father fought with the men on those nights on the island of Guadalcanal. He was a Marine and was blessed to survive, while many for country gave all. As his youth fell away, his courage remained, undimmed by the scars and the years. After war, he devoted his life to save lives and be true to his family so dear. My sons now walk where their grandfather led. Marines they are proud to be, and I know that courage my father had, and my sons all will see. But I pray that my sons will never need to be in a faraway land and fight for peace by risking life while taking freedom's stand. But heaven forbid should war come again, and my young men are called to go. I know their duty they will fulfill, as my father did long ago.